Kill Complacency, a podcast that inspires growth and intentionality and helps you overcome your greatest obstacles.
Instead of looking for a job, look for customers. But to get back to your question, if I had somebody set a goal, I would say I would try to invite them to dream outside the box, which is really hard to do. But like, what are you embarrassed to say out loud because it feels unrealistic? And let's put that on paper. And what does that look like for you and your spouse? And then let's engineer something to get you there. So it's not necessarily financially first. I'm very much a strategist. I want to pick something and build a way to get there. And I think we can do that financially. And people get stuck on how am I going to do that financially? But dream and the vision is really important. So it would just be what do you think the biggest thing you're missing is? What's the one thing right now that if you were doing it, you would look at it and say, I can't believe we get to do this. I can't believe we're here.
That's powerful. And I would argue, and that's part of the reason I started this podcast, I would argue that with a few limitations, anyone can do about anything if they have the dream, they set the goal, and they reverse engineer it. Maybe we don't want to become the person that has to do those things. I think that's the issue a lot of the times. But everything has its steps and processes to accomplish it. It's just, we don't always put in the reps.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, how did you keep talking about the 90s financial advice. Tell me a story about how you kind of realized that was bad.
Well, I want to try to not say it was bad, but
it was bad advice, right?
It's not going, when we ask people, what outcome are you shooting for? I think for most of us, 90s financial advice is not going to deliver the outcome you want or you're looking for.
Okay.
In that way, it's bad. Was it bad for previous generations? I don't know. It depends on what outcome they're looking for. But even the traditional retirement model is a huge part of 90s financial advice. It's under a ton of stress today for 50 and 60-year-olds. Why does anybody think that's going to work for us? So I started realizing that it was broken when I really looked at accumulation theory versus cash flow. So again, everybody wants to accumulate a huge amount of money and have it somewhere and log in and look at it.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But again, you live and breathe off cash flow. Your income from your job is cash flow, right? So you can live without one and not the other. So you make $100,000 a year. I can pay you $100,000 a year for the next 5 years, or I can just give you $500,000 in 5 years maybe you up the ante and say, I'll give you $700,000 in 5 years. Well, that $700,000 in 5 years doesn't do you any good if you don't have cash flow between now and then. And so just realizing the whole world runs off cash flow. Another example would be like when people value a business, right? It's valued off of revenue, which is cash flow. And it's typically valued at a multiple. Tech companies, not uncommon to value the company at 10x off of their cash flow. They have $1 million in revenue, they're a $10 million company. But they don't do that with their assets on the balance sheet. The balance sheet's assets are not valued at a multiple, it's just valued at face value. So the more you look at it, it's like, okay, everything should be set up for cash flow. The traditional retirement model, you want $2.5 million or $3 million today to achieve $100,000 a year. So, but what you're doing, that's equity. So you got to convert, it's not cash flow. You got to convert equity to cash flow. When you do that, two things happen. Number one, you generate taxes. If it's coming from a retirement account, it's income taxes. Long-term capital gains would be better, and it'd be less. It's income tax level. So there's drag there. And then number two is you forego the opportunity cost of what you could have earned if it had stayed invested. So that's what happens to realize gain off of equity. You have to convert it to cash flow. If you just have cash flow, the principal attached to the cash flow stays uninterrupted growing, right? You don't generate taxes because there's no sale, and you can realize gain off of the cash flow. And so, and again, that's an idea you see in a lot of different places, but obviously Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so it's like, if you want $10,000 of income, go buy enough assets that produce cash flow at the level of $10,000 a month. And at that point, you're financially independent. That can happen way before age 65. You can still keep working, but there's not all these limitations and rules about you can't touch it unless, and then there's a whole bunch of other problems with retirement accounts, which we can save if you want to talk about that. But I would say the retirement piece was a big factor for me. If you're saying tell a story, like really studying that, I was like, this is broken. This is broken.
Now you started with your money, and have you pulled it? Have
Oh, yeah.
you you've pulled it, you've leveraged it, you put it to work.
Yes. So I was doing backdoor Roth, and yeah, I don't have any money in retirement accounts. For me, like, or 529s or HSAs, and any of that. So for me, it's like the reality that I can't touch it and do what I want to do with it is it's just a hard non-starter. Like when you think about, because people will come to me and say, well, we wish we could go travel to see family for the holidays, but the flights are just too expensive, or we wish we could do this or that. And I'm like, you have the money to do that. You realize that. You do. You've got $400,000 in a 401k. Like, they've heavily incentivized it so you won't touch it. But like, you've worked and earned. It's just that you've allocated that money to somebody else who has more control over it than you do for decades.
Mm-hmm.
That's a broken system to me.
Yeah, that's good. To play devil's advocate a little bit, I feel like real estate investing is similar. I can't tap into my equity. I can tap into equity. But I've always felt like it's a good asset because I can't get it instantly if my money's in a savings account. So I'd rather lock it up into a house where I can refi it out, but I can't because for some reason, Will, if I put money in the bank, it goes away. But if I have these hard assets, they can multiply and they can increase and they can create cash flow. I don't want to push that aside. But what happens with real estate investors is their net worth goes up over time as asset gets paid down and values go up.
Yeah. So there's a lot to say to that. So I think, first of all, I think about Genesis, and I think about the Garden of Eden, and ownership is a major principle in Genesis 1 and 2, where God is giving Adam stewardship and ownership over the Garden of Eden. You tend the earth and the animals and the plants. You name the earth and the animals and the plants. I created them, but you steward them and you have ownership over them. And so I think with with a lot of things, but with our finances, the culture has shifted towards outsourcing that ownership to other people at different levels. Which, I'm not saying it's bad to have a financial advisor. I'm just saying with the fact, like, when you look at a traditional retirement account, you're fourth in line to realize gain off of those.
Sure.
Fun. So first and foremost, if you have a financial advisor, which, again, I'm not against financial advisors at all. They're nice people. Most of them that I've met are nice, and they're smart, and they're worth being compensated. But over 40 years, a 1% fee erodes about 33% of what you could have had in your account. So what's funny is, what's that?
1% takes 33%.
Yes.
Wow.
Over 40 or 50 years, over a long time frame, which is usually okay. And what's funny is you're investing for appreciation in the S&P 500, but the financial advisor is realizing cash flow. The benefit to them is cash flow. So again, the whole system's, they're like, everybody's like appreciation, the benefit. Anyways, so that's an interesting point. Secondly, if there's a mutual fund involved, which a lot of company 401ks, those fees have been as high as 2%, right? There's a huge drag on those. And then third would be the government. So there are financial advisor, mutual funds, and the government all realize gain on your retirement funds before you do.
They all get cash flow.
They all get cash flow before you do. And they have arguably more control and more access than you do. So I'm not saying that's bad if you're doing that. It's not wrong or bad. It's not most aligned with the value of ownership. Okay. So get me back to your original question. What one piece was ownership?
I was playing devil's advocate a little bit because you were talking about how in a Roth or whatever, you can't tap into it. And I have felt like for myself,
benefit because it's like a forced savings account.
Yes. That's what I have felt about single family homes is I can sell them, but it takes some time. And a lot of times, or I can refi it, but it's not, if I have money sitting in the bank, it tends to disappear.
That's really important. That's an important point. So there's definitely something to systems that increase friction for access to funds and automation. All of that's valuable and helpful to combat some of the tendencies of human behavior. But you hit on something that's really important, which is a big difference between 90s financial advice and what we're trying to teach people. 90s financial advice fundamentally believes that you're going to screw it up. You're not trustworthy. You're not responsible, and you can't change or grow. You're just stupid, and you need to listen and shut up and do what the experts tell you to do and not ask questions. And you shouldn't have credit cards. You need to cut them up because you'll screw it up if you do have credit cards. And you need to not have debt because you'll screw it up if you have debt. And you need to not do this until you're debt free and all this because you will screw it up. There's just a fundamental belief that you are bad and stupid and you're going to screw it up. And so some of that is to your point, is human nature a factor? Absolutely, it's a factor. And none of us are perfect. But I believe that people can grow and change and learn to do better with money. And I believe that they can grow into a place where they can manage it responsibly and allocate it responsibly. And it's not this thing where if I have access to too much money, I'll do something bad with it. Of course, human behavior is a factor, but that's not my underwriting philosophy that all of my financial education comes off of, and that's what it is for 90s financial advice.
Yeah, that's really helpful to put it like that, because I think that it makes me wonder if they don't teach it in school on purpose so that we stay dumb and continue to hand off our money.
I don't know.
I don't know if I shouldn't say that. I know Robert Kiyosaki would probably subscribe to that.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, what's the biggest lie people believe about financial independence?
I don't know if there's a lie. I think that the biggest impediment between people and financial independence is understanding what the heck game they're playing, right? And what's going on and how all this actually works. So I think people want to do herd mentality is a big factor. They want to do what everybody else is doing. It feels good to save some in a savings account and put it in their stock market. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if I want to be financially independent at age 40 or age 45, that plan is not going to deliver that outcome. And if I can't deliver financial independence early, then a whole bunch of other things that are important to us, that are values for us, are probably not going to be an option. And then you get to the later third of your life or the end of your life, and a lot of those dreams just never saw daylight. I think that's what's at risk.
There's a book I read last year. It's called The 5-Year Crusade. It's a sequel to another book, but the 5-Year Crusade is basically have that dream and then build it back for 5 years. If you're willing to work hard for 5 years, like people can do a lot, but a lot of times they just drift through life. And then to your point, they get to the end and they got nothing because they just did same old.
90s financial advice is the average financial advice, and you're going to end up average. So where's the average person right now? And I don't have the statistics memorized, but yeah, your 50 or 60-year-old does not, and this is like Social Security is saying this, that are the folks that run the Social Security institution are saying most 50 and 60-year-olds don't have anywhere near enough money to live on for even a short amount of time. And Americans aren't saving enough. That's where the average financial advice takes you. And a lot of it's because in the 90s, inflation wasn't nearly as big of an issue as it is today. Inflation's kind of the major key that I do think it was cumbersome. It wasn't very efficient from a wealth standpoint advice to begin with, but inflation's really blown everything up. And you have to do different things to account for how much inflation we have.
Yeah, for sure. What place does faith play into financial decisions?
I think faith should be the groundwork for everything. You start from that place and move forward. But yeah, with finances specifically, is there a specific way you're thinking about that?
I think I would agree, faith's the foundation. I think sometimes whether it's, we just don't have enough faith to think that God could maybe bless us with that new home or that dream or whatever. And we just want to continue to live and exist and expect it all to fall in our lap.
We tend to be very attracted to predictable and safe and known. And a lot of times everything God's asking us to do is to get outside the box.
Yeah.
It's all through the Bible. And so I think we're very slow to trade what we think is safe for anything else. And I actually think 90s financial advice is extremely risky. A lot of it's riddled with just single point failure systems. You have one job with a steady paycheck, right? So that's a major single point failure system. and then you have a retirement account in the stock market, so it's not even spread out over asset classes, that's a major single point failure system. Super risky. And if someone loses their W-2 job, they lose a major source of income. Most families can't live on one source of income alone. So you're already behind. But they also lose healthcare and whatever retirement benefits they had. It could be that your company just had a bad day or your boss had a bad day. You didn't do anything wrong. We teach people you need the 3 rules of income for 2026, or you need a source of income you can control. So you're not going to just get laid off one day. You need something you can control, even if it's small. Number 2 is you need a source of income you can scale. If you decide to have more kids, if you decide to move to a more expensive place, you need a source of income you can grow to meet that demand, and then also to stay ahead of inflation. And then number 3 is you need multiple sources of income. This is just common sense. It's kind of, the more I look at it, it's like, how is this? But everything you're taught is the opposite of that. Go get the steady paycheck at the good job, climb the ladder, and then 40 or 50 years later, it'll all just work out. And on day 1 of the challenge, we go through and look at all the assumptions built into a retirement account and really whittle it down from this gross return number of the stock market always does this, you'll have this much money. Let's factor out fees and inflation and safe withdrawal rate and taxes and see what that will actually net out to if the stock market performs like they think it will. And then here's all these other scenarios that they don't account for.
Have you played that out with ChatGPT or anything? That would be a fun prompt.
I've played it out on chat and with Excel and with the manual calculator, and we spend about 25 minutes on day 1 going through that.
Yeah.
Case studies, yeah.
That's cool. Okay, one more question before we get into the final 4.
Yep.
If there's a family that feels stuck financially, what's the first intentional step they should be taking? Look you up, take your course?
I think they need to give themselves permission to think outside the box. Everybody is trapped in the box, whether they know it or not. And you have this idea, I'd love to live on land. I'd love to homeschool. I'd love to stay. That you self-limit right there in your own head before it ever comes out because we can't afford it, or my husband won't go for it, or whatever. You got to give yourself permission to dream outside the box. And then you said 1 step, but step 2 would be begin to understand how you could make that possible. Don't be afraid to plant the dream. Don't be afraid to plant the flag and go for it. But then understand what, and this is where financial education comes in because there's such a big gap there, but what could we do today to actually start working towards that and build it out? Because it's actually not all that hard. You can do it. You can actually really do it. You're going to have to quit following 90s financial advice, but it's totally doable.
I love that, Will. I love that. I love to hear your passion in that. And I agree wholeheartedly. Like, we can reverse just about anything we want. I've often thought about or told people, what do you want your obituary to say? Be that person. We don't have to continue doing whatever we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is something you're doing right now, Will, that your future self is going to thank you for?
Man, I think I could point you to something. I could point you to certain financial things. I'm a huge advocate of properly structured whole life insurance. I think my future self and my future kids, my future grandkids will be very grateful for that and infinite banking that comes with it. But I'm going to give you, I think the more you invite God in and say, there's that verse in the Psalms, point out anything in me that offends you, and you work on yourself for the sake of your family, and you give God permission to work on you for the sake of your family, I think that'll be the highest return thing that I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I tried to deal with that when I was 39 instead of 59.
That's good. Yeah, because our sins and vices, we just tend to put off till later.
Yeah. Sometimes you're not even aware of how you're coming across or what. Let's give your family the most. And that means you got to work on yourself.
That's good. If you could go back and give advice to your 20-year-old self, Will, what would you say?
I was so in the box in my 20s, and I would try to tell myself, like, don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to get out of the box. Don't be afraid to, quote, fail. I don't know if I even really believe in failure anymore. The school system teaches failure the way they do tests and memorization. That teaches you success. There's success and there's failure. Don't fail. In reality, business is all about iteration, which the school system would say, oh my gosh, you failed 100 times. Or 50 times or 20 times or whatever, but it's not failure. It's iteration. There's a big difference. That's a major mindset shift. So I would tell myself, just try things. Don't be afraid to try something. Don't worry about how you might look or whatever else. Like, it's absolutely worth it. And the growth and the potential is invaluable.
How do you teach your kids that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now, again, they're so young. They're all 7 and under. We try to encourage them to be creative, and they're building something or doing something or imagining something in the backyard. Like, I try to be a part of that, and we try not to enforce black and white kind of. There's black and white, obviously, and right and wrong.
Yeah.
But in anything else, I want them to just. I don't want to squash or inhibit their creativity in any way.
Yeah. I think something else we can do is talk about our failures. That's something we don't want to do. But if you come home and say, hey, I had this bad, I knew it from the beginning, this client wasn't going to buy a house. I gave her 30 hours of my time. And she was with someone else.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, normalize it.
Yeah, I love that.
What's a favorite quote or book that you've read that's impacted your life?
Oh, books are always hard because there's so many. And you have to say, the Bible is the most important book I've ever read. I think one that's relevant to this conversation, and I don't necessarily, I don't resonate with everything in this book, but there was one book talking about dreams that really put beautiful language to how, for most everybody, dreams just die before they die inside you before they see the light of day. And it lines up with, I don't remember who said it, but is it Henry Ford who said, or no, Thoreau, most men live quiet lives of desperation. The book is The Alchemist.
Okay.
And it's a story. It's just a story, but 3/4 of the way in the book, he just nails the language about potential and the dreams you have inside you and how it just dies in most people and never sees the light of day. And it's so convicting and captivating, and everybody should read it just for that.
It's good. Powerful. Yeah, my one takeaway from this podcast is I want to help people dream better, because it sounds like that's maybe the secret ingredients to helping them do their unthinkable goal. So,
yeah, just break the box and dream.
Yeah. If this is your final message, Will, what do you want people to know about Will Davis?
What do I want them to know, or what do I want them to know about me? Well,
about you.
Yeah, I would just say that, like, everything you need to know about me, everything good in this life that has ever happened to me is by the grace of God and the grace of Jesus Christ. That's it. A lot of good things have happened to me. I didn't think I was going to get married at one point. I'm married to the woman of my dreams. I have 4 amazing kids. That rocked my world. I've enjoyed everything I've gotten to do. It's all by the grace of God. Everything good that has happened, including my relationship with Jesus, was because of Christ. And if he's not in your life, you need to get him in your life. And that's just the honest truth. Like, I could talk about all the good things, and I could talk about, but it all has one common factor.
That's good. That's good. How do people find, follow, and learn more about you and financial independence for the family?
Yeah. So we actually they can go to familyfirstmethod.com/kill-complacency. And we have a free gift for your audience, anybody that wants to learn more about 90s financial advice and what it looks like to move forward and get out of that and get ahead and start moving towards some of those dreams.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate you doing this, and I love to hear your heart.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed the conversation as well.
I just wanted to thank you guys for listening to the end. In closing, I just wanted to add that if this message resonates with you, if it aligns with your values, and something in it today triggered something, then you can also look me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. We are really trying to help people live more intentional lives, to kill the complacency with which they have subscribed to. I know there's many ways which I get sucked in all the time. So if this is beneficial, follow me there.